Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sever7, and today we are taking a look at the Quiet Carry IQ. And that's with the ultimate goal of seeing if it's worth adding to your collection or your daily carry rotation. Now, this knife was sent in by Moped EDC. She's a very dear friend of mine. I know her in real life. She's awesome. And her collection is also awesome. I'm going to leave her YouTube and her Instagram in the description. Please go check her out. Now, this knife was designed by Quiet Carry and OEM'd by Quiet Carry's team in Taiwan. So jumping right into it, one of the things I love about Quiet Carry is their knurling. And it's this like textured micro milling that looks and feels incredible. It adds meaningful traction, so this knife is not going to slip out of your hands. You'll notice kind of a theme of a utilitarian focus for their knives. And you'll see examples of that as we kind of go through this. But one big example is that like you're locked in. Like you don't feel it at all. You don't feel the knurling as far as like it grabbing your skin, but you're just locked in and it feels fantastic. Now the knurling is on the show side. The back side is completely smooth. We also have a milled deep carry titanium pocket clip. We have an uninterrupted lock bar because we have an internal lock bar relief cut. We have these 4 dots. I've been told it's the 4 elements. I've been told it represents them being a pen company at some point. I don't know what the 4 dots mean. So Quiet Carry, if you watch this, please let us know. Would super appreciate that. We do have a nice little 1/3 backspacer that looks really clean. No place for a lanyard, but you know, utility first, right? Lanyards extra. Lanyards are bougie. You know what I mean? So utility first design doesn't really need a spot for a lanyard. But overall, very clean. It's a minimalist design, but a lot of companies try to be minimalistic for aesthetic. This is minimalism as a natural characteristic of a utilitarian driven design, right? It's not utilitarian because, or it's not minimalist because minimalism. It's minimalist because by design, they're focused on utility, which means no frills, no, nothing more than what you need, right? And that's baked into their design philosophy. I think they executed very well. Now let's talk about the ergonomics. So this is incredibly neutral. It's about as neutral as you can get. With neutral handles, it is a great fit for most, not a perfect fit for any, right? So you don't see like, jimps or, choke up spots or, any grooves or any nothing, right? You just have a smooth handle. And normally that makes for an okay fit, right? What they've done here is brilliant though. Instead of adding things to make the knife more comfortable, they've removed anything that would be uncomfortable. So all of these, like everything is rounded and knocked down. It's smoothed over. There's no harsh lines or sharp edges. Everything has been made to fit into your hand comfortably. And it's excellent. I couldn't find a hot spot if you paid me to. To find a hot spot, you would have to squeeze this knife so unbelievably hard that your hand's uncomfortable just from squeezing it so hard, right? Like anything could be a hot spot if you're brave enough. You know what I mean? So for this knife, it's neutral, but it's much more comfortable than you would believe because there are no hot spots. It's just that, like, I know the pocket clip is there. Is it a hot spot? No. I know that, there's you know I know that the scale is thinner here, but is it a hot spot? No, right? Because they've rounded everything off and smoothed it over. So ergonomically, this thing's kind of fantastic. Now talking about this blade, We have a nice polished stone wash. We are rocking a hollow grind, a tall hollow grind. And we have this nice utilitarian sheep's foot blade shape. We're rocking M390 for the blade steel. M390 is highly corrosion resistant. So, you know, the natural elements be damned, they're not going to hurt your knife. I mean, unless you tie a rock to it and just drop it in the ocean, right? Then eventually, yes. But within reason, the elements aren't going to hurt, they're not going to hurt your knife. M390 has great edge retention. The only downside is it's not a very tough steel. So pretty much as long as you're not using this as a flathead, you're not using it as a mini pry bar, you know, you're not torquing it in any way, you're going to be fine, right? Just have some sense when you use the knife. Like, you can look at this knife and know what it's capable of. I think it's intrinsic to all of us to look at this knife and be like, yeah, that can cut open boxes, maybe cut some rope, definitely a good letter opener, definitely good EDC oriented. And if you think those things, you're right. That's what this knife is meant for. But if you look at this and you think, man, that's long, and I could probably, you know, pry a door open with it. I could probably hammer some nails in. If you think that, then you're being silly, because you'll destroy your knife. It's not what it's made for. You don't have any belly, but you do have a long edge. And with it being a hollow grind, it's not built for slicing, but it's going to be a great slicer, right? And the sheep's foot, it comes up a bit, so you still have some pokeability. They do keep it robust through the blade stock thickness, or really, rather, the spine is really robust. It does get pretty darn thin near the tip comparatively. But keep in mind, it's a hollow grind, right? So it's a super thin grind on an already not tough steel. So as long as you stick to what this knife is made for, you're fine. But if you stray from that, if you start, you know, putting pressure on it and torquing it, you know, hitting it, you know, you're just going to jack your knife up. So don't do those things. Let's talk about the action. The acoustics are fantastic. Super snappy. This thing really rockets out. We are riding on washers and not bearings. Now, sticking to that whole utilitarian theme, washers are going to be great because, you know, you can stick washers in the mud. You know, you can stick them in the dirt. Washers are pretty unaffected by, you know, things getting inside, right? Because washers are a closed system. So, like, you don't really have to take them out. You don't have to disassemble your knife necessarily to clean it. With bearings, though, they're not a closed system. So, you know, where the bearings are actually sit, you know, it's possible for them to get gunk on them, and then for that gunk to roll into the bearing housing and actually cause your action to be a little funky. It'll be a little jacked up. And then you kind of have to take it apart, rinse it out really well, put it back together, and hope that you got all the grime out of it. And if you get really into it, you know, if you have to pull out a bearing, you might actually have to remove one of the balls from it to adequately rinse it out to get all the gunk out of it, which sucks if you've ever had to do it. But with washers, you don't have any such issue, right? Because washers are a closed system. It's just a washer. That's it. So it's a lot more resilient to debris, and it's self-lubricating, right? So as far as maintenance on the user side, doesn't require much less than a bearing knife would in the same conditions. So, but the trade-off is with washers, you have to break them in. Now, I have broken this knife in some, but I know that, you know, Mopedi hasn't used this knife a ton. And while I have used it a ton, there's only so much fidgeting I can do with it, in the matter of a couple of days, right? So what it would look like in the future if I kept fidgeting with it, like if I owned this knife for, another 3 months or so, we would probably get to a point where I would disengage it and we would see maybe a little, a little less shake. We might even see a hydraulic close. I don't know if the blade's heavy enough for that, but just know that this will break in over time and it will just get smoother and smoother to open and to close. It's already really smooth and it really only takes one shake, even though I just shook it like 11 times. It really only takes one. So let's talk a little bit about the sharpening life of this knife. So it looks like you're going to be able to get, I would guess, I'm not an expert, but I would guess you get about 4 sharpenings out of this, depending on how aggressive an angle you put on your knives. I would say you probably get about 4 sharpenings out of this. And if you wanted to cut in your own sharpening choil, I would say you could, because there's no stop pin that contacts back here. The stop pin is an internal stop pin, which means it's on the inside of the pivot. It's not external. So you can cut away whatever material you want out of here. It's not going to impact the knife's ability to stop whenever you close it. Now, as far as specs go, we're looking at 6.7 inches overall, a 2.9 inch blade, and a blade to handle ratio of 0.78, which is terrific. The closer you are to 0.8, the better. That's when you start to get a Shirogorov 50-50 look, and we kind of have that now, right? It kind of looks 50-50 as far as blade to handle goes. And if we get in a little bit closer, we can see that they gave us quite a bit, maybe a 1/16 of an inch more. Would have put us above that 0.8. But overall, it's not bad at all. They did a pretty good job cramming about as much blade as they could into the handle. And then as far as weight goes, we're coming in at 2.2 ounces, which is hyper light, like hyper light. Balance is coming in, I want to say, yeah, it looks like right here. So third dot, or second dot, depending on which side you're coming from, which isn't bad at all. But I mean, it's so light that you can maneuver however you want to, regardless of the balance point, because it's only 2.2 ounces. Now, some size comparisons up against the milled aluminum Civivi Brazen. One of the best Civivis ever made. And we are coming in quite a bit smaller than the Brazen. The Real Steel Sylph, made shorter because I rolled the tip. And we are coming in quite a bit larger than the Sylph. I'd say maybe an inch longer. And then one of my favorite budget knives of the year so far, the Maigaran Gotov. And that is also coming in, I'd say about 1.25 inches smaller than the IQ. You guys know that I talk about expensive knives on the channel. So for anybody that, wants to know, is there something good out there on a budget? This is D2 in aluminum for $29 and some change. So under 30 bucks. And this knife will do pretty much everything you want it to as far as EDC goes. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to hold up to knives like the IQ, not even close. But if you just need a good everyday carry for 30 bucks, the Gotov's pretty good. All right, so what's the price on this guy? I was actually shocked. If I had to guesstimate a price point for this knife, I would have guessed it was about 250 bucks. And I was way off. This knife comes in between $182 and about 205 bucks. That's from the site. That's not, with manufacturers, you know, or not manufacturer, but that's not like a dealer's discount. That's not a special sale price. You can go onto the website and pick one of these up for $182. That is mind blowing to me. I would have. I was hoping this knife didn't go over 250, because like 250, I was like, okay, that sounds about right to me. And I was worried that maybe it was like 275 or something. I was going to be like, ugh. No, I went and looked. 182 to $205. That is wild to me. That is wild pricing to me. Yeah, if you go on and you get the base version at $182 with everything that I've talked about, yeah, that's insane. That is such a no-brainer. I don't even like. I'm not. This isn't a sponsored video. I don't get paid to say any of this stuff. I don't even have an affiliate link. I'm just saying this stuff because it's honest. Yeah, the utility focus, the precision machining, the fact that it's made in Taiwan and it's $182 is absolutely insane. You don't need much reason to buy this knife. If you like the look of it, get it. If you need the utility that it brings to the table, get it. If you just have $182 burning a hole in your pocket and you just want to get something, get it. You want a gift for a friend, get it. This thing is terrific. Even at $205, yeah. Yep. I don't know what the difference between the finishes are, but I'm wiping my eyes. I would say, there we go. I would say, yeah, it's worth every penny. This thing's punching way above its price point. And I know some people say, well, it's M390 titanium, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But for something, typically you'll find Chinese knives that are slapped together with M390 and titanium with no purpose built into it, no drive behind it. And don't get me wrong, I collect Chinese knives. I love Chinese knives. They are fantastic. Most of my collection is Chinese knives. But there's a different level of quality coming out of Taiwan. And Taiwan is much more expensive to manufacture than China is. Taiwan is much closer to USA pricing than it is Chinese pricing. So to have this level of quality, this much performance-oriented attributes, to be on washers, to have this like ironclad knurling, the corrosion resistance, to have all those things in a purpose-driven form for $182 is insane. So for me, this would be a daily carry. This would not be a collection piece. And I mean, it's been a delight to use so far. It's not my favorite blade shape, but I do dig the aesthetic. And while this isn't my favorite blade shape, that's only aesthetics, right? I would, you take the same knife and slap a harpoon, tonto, and a recurve on it, and I would be drooling all over it. So my only gripe is that the blade isn't my aesthetic taste. That's it. I have nothing bad to say about this knife. It's terrific. So yeah, for me, it would be a daily carry, not a collection piece. But what about for you? Is this something that would find its way into your collection? Is this something that you would just everyday carry like me? Or did this knife miss the mark for you entirely? If it did, let me know why. I look forward to reading your thoughts down below. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. Please don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, guys, peace.